Greetings, my name is Nathan and I will be your guide for this world tour of music. Grab your guitar and pocket your passport. We are off to Boston to spend a little time with Sheryl Bailey and learn more about the essentials of bebop guitar. An absolute master of her craft, Sheryl has groomed some incredible chops, an impeccable taste of which she applies them. There's no description more apt for Sheryl than a sizzling guitar goddess, coined by Elliot Simon of All About Jazz. Just Jazz Guitar agrees, ranking her among the best bop guitar players with a fresh approach and something new. Ready to disembark? Grab your guitar and let's dig in with Sheryl.
Lick number 4 is called the Diatonic above. This line you can hear in the music of Charlie Parker, Dexter Gordon, Pat Martino, and hopefully you're going to learn a really important lesson about how to embellish melodies out of chord tones. This line is based around just a B-flat triad. There's no seventh in here, but you can see how melodies come out of arpeggios, and even if it's just the triad without the seventh. So this is an example of what I would call the diatonic above embellishment. So I'm using, if this is my triad arpeggio, I'm using a diatonic note just above. So above the third, above the fifth, above the root, above the third, above the fifth, to the root. So that's the idea, and this is a very, very common technique used. So I like to think of it as a melodic embellishment. Some people might call that an approach tone, but where I'm getting that extra note is it's diatonic above the triad. So again, if I play through this, so I'm above the third, to the fifth, to the root, to the third, to the fifth, to the root, to the third, to the fifth, to the root, to the third, to the fifth, to the root. So you can see this is really the source of where the line, all those other notes come from. And by really knowing exactly where your chord tones lie, then you can start to have fun with adding embellishments. And of course, what is so important to jazz is rhythmic placement and rhythmic phrasing. So as you get to know these, you can have a lot of fun with placing them and displacing them. But let me play this for you one more time, very slow. It starts on the and of 4, which is also very important in terms of the phrasing and where the chord tones land, because you'll see the chord tones are always landing on the downbeat. So in slow motion here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Lick 25 is called the microcosmic bebop line. To me, this means from the small to the all. This is a great line to learn all the principles of using a dominant 7 bebop scale and all the principles of chord substitution. And it's a fantastic 2-5 lick. So here it is, the microcosmic bebop line. I call this lick the microcosmic bebop line for many reasons. It shows you the proper usage of the dominant 7 bebop scale and the proper use of chord substitutions, and you can use it in so many harmonic situations. We don't have time to get into it that deeply here, but I wanted to present it to you and my ideas about this. The lick is made up of in this case, G minor 7, C7, a C7 bebop scale, and 3 other arpeggios, a G minor 7 arpeggio, an E half diminished arpeggio, or minor 7 flat 5, and a B flat major 7 arpeggio. So what is important to me about this, and why I call it the microcosmic bebop line, is because from this small idea, this small 4-bar phrase, I can explain to you a lot about the bigger picture of how to put together jazz lines and how chord substitutions work and how the bebop scale works. So the line is G minor 7 arpeggio, then a C7 bebop scale, so a dominant 7 bebop scale from the 3rd, and it goes down an octave. And that's usually the usage of a bebop scale. It's always used in motion, and it's used to get from octave to octave. It's a very saxophone-like idea. So when I get from that E to the next E, from there I go up an E minor 7 flat 5, or sometimes I do call that E half diminished. Same thing, means the same thing. An E minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio. And then from there, that leaves me off perfectly, and the word for that is voice leads perfectly to a C. And from there, I'm just going to go down my bebop scale 1 octave. Okay? But I'm going to keep going to the flat 7. But from there, I come up a B flat major 7 arpeggio. Now, in this idea of the chord substitutions and applying this to many other ideas, I can obviously use this, as I did in this context, on this 2/5, G minor 7, C7. But I can also use it over an E half diminished, right? Because that's one of the chords that's in there. An A7 altered. So that would be a minor 2/5 in the key of E minor. So, I'm sorry, in D minor. So see if you can figure out that connection there. 2/5, G minor 7, C7 is 2/5 in the key of F. The relative minor key of F is D minor, and so I can use it on the 2/5 in the relative minor key. So E minor 7 flat 5, A7 altered. So it right, works on that. And there's one other application. For instance, a B flat major 7 chord. So, we could get into this is for maybe a later date to get into how all of those other chord arpeggios and the bebop scale would interact with this chord, E half diminished, right? And G minor 7, the relative minor, and the C7 bebop scale. So if I had, for instance, a static B flat major 7 chord, and what I would recommend to you, since in this course we've had some tracks with a B flat major 7, go back to those tracks with the static B flat major 7 and play this microcosmic bebop line over it, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. And I base a lot of my philosophy as a player of chord substitutions on this microcosmic bebop line. So let me play it for you very slow from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. Line 26 is called Darker Tension. This line explores adding the diminished arpeggio over the dominant to get a dark flat 9 sound on your 2/5 line. One of the most important sounds to start to introduce to your dominant on the 2/5 is the flat 9 sound. And you can achieve that by using a G flat, in this case over an F7, a G flat diminished arpeggio. And this is a big core of a lot of the jazz sound, is this flat 9 or using this diminished arpeggio. So a G flat diminished arpeggio over F7. Now, let me start at the beginning of the line. We've got a C minor 7, and again, our common substitution, the A minor 7 flat 5. So that's really bringing out the sound of the natural 6. So minor 7 6 sound, or that Dorian sound, which to me is so important in the jazz language. So we got a C minor 7, A minor 7 flat 5, or A half diminished. Sorry, I can't make up my mind which I prefer to call it. And then this voice leads perfectly to this diminished arpeggio, this G flat diminished arpeggio over the F7. And then I'm using that sharp 9. Now, this would come ultimately from the symmetrical diminished scale. And we're going to get into that in a little bit more detail very shortly here. So I'll leave that for that when we get into that in depth. But I have this G flat diminished arpeggio, a little bit of that symmetrical diminished scale. So I'm really bringing out the sound of that F7 sharp 9, core jazz harmony sound. And then that resolves very nicely to the 3rd of the B flat. So again, looking at how these lines are always setting up those resolutions by voice leading or by the smoothest motion, and oftentimes really accentuating those strong chord tones like the 3rd of the chord. That's very definitive of that B flat major 7 chord. A little approach tone to the 6th. And then the 9th. So I've got the 6th and the 9th in play here on the B flat major 7, bringing out, really accentuating those beautiful upper structure tones that make it jazz. So let me slow this down for you. And it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.